The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden wheat fields of New Jeju. Park Hyun-woo stood on his porch, holding a cup of coffee and watching the farmers begin their daily work. As the colony's governor, he felt proud of what they had built here. 50,000 people called this place home, and they had created something beautiful on this distant world. Lee Soo-jin walked between the rows of crops, checking the soil moisture levels with her scanner. She had been the colony's chief agricultural engineer for 5 years now. The wheat was growing perfectly, just like the corn and vegetables in the other fields. She smiled as she watched children playing near the irrigation channels. This was a good life, far from the busy planets closer to Earth. At the edge of the settlement, Kim Tae-ho finished his morning patrol. He commanded the Colonial Defense Force, though it was hardly impressive. 200 volunteers with basic weapons and old equipment. Most were farmers who trained on weekends. Kim often joked that they could barely stop a bar fight, let alone defend against real threats. But out here on the rim, there were no real threats to worry about. The colony had everything it needed. Dr. Choi Mi-young ran the medical center, treating everything from broken bones to helping deliver babies. Yoon Jae-won owned the most popular cantina in town, where people gathered every evening to share stories and laugh together. Life was simple and peaceful. Park Hyun-woo had chosen this life carefully. Before becoming governor, he had served in the military for 20 years. He had seen enough war and violence to last several lifetimes. When the chance came to lead a farming colony on the outer rim, he took it gladly. Here his biggest problems were crop yields and trade schedules. The colonists came from all walks of life. Some were farmers who wanted more land. Others were families seeking a quiet place to raise children. A few were like Park Hyun-woo, former military people who wanted peace. They had all worked hard to build something good together. New Jeju sat far from the main shipping lanes. Supply ships came every few months, bringing news from the inner worlds and taking their grain exports. The colony was self-sufficient in most ways. They grew their own food, generated their own power, and handled their own problems. It was exactly what most of them wanted. The farms stretched for kilometers in every direction. Wheat, corn, and soybeans covered the fertile plains. Orchards full of fruit trees dotted the hillsides. Cattle and sheep grazed in green pastures. The colonists had chosen this world well. The soil was rich, the climate was mild, and there was plenty of fresh water. Children attended school in the morning and helped with farm work in the afternoon. Teenagers learned skills like mechanics, medicine, and agriculture. Adults worked hard but found time for community events and celebrations. The elderly shared their wisdom and enjoyed watching their grandchildren grow up in safety. Dr. Choi Mi-young often said this was how human life should be. No pollution, no overcrowding, no stress from city life. People knew their neighbors and helped each other. Crime was almost non-existent. The biggest excitement usually came from harvest festivals or sports competitions between the different farming districts. But life on the rim also meant being far from help. The nearest human military base was weeks away by ship. If trouble came, New Jeju would have to handle it alone. This fact didn't worry most colonists. They had Kim Tae-ho's defense force, and what enemy would bother attacking a farming world anyway? Unknown to the peaceful farmers of New Jeju, they had attracted attention from a very dangerous source. Far across the galaxy, the Velthiran Empire had been watching human expansion with growing interest. The Empire controlled over 2,000 star systems and had absorbed dozens of alien species through conquest. Supreme Admiral Kethmore commanded the Empire's war fleets. He was a veteran of countless campaigns and had never met an enemy he couldn't defeat. To him, humans looked like another primitive species ready for absorption. Their ships were few, their colonies were scattered, and they seemed more interested in farming than fighting. The Empire's strategy was always the same: send scout fleets to identify weak targets, demand submission, crush any resistance quickly to discourage others. It had worked perfectly for centuries. Species after species had joined the Empire, either willingly or by force. Human colonies like New Jeju seemed especially tempting. They were isolated, lightly defended, and full of valuable resources. The Empire's intelligence reports described them as soft targets populated by civilians who would surrender rather than fight, perfect for demonstrating imperial power to the galaxy. War Captain Velthak had volunteered to lead the scouting mission to New Jeju. He commanded 50 warships, more than enough to handle a farming colony. His troops were eager for action after months of boring patrol duty. This would be an easy victory to add to their records. The Valthyran fleet moved through hyperspace toward the outer rim of human territory. Their destination was chosen carefully. New Jeju was far from help, had no significant defenses, and represented an important food production center. Conquering it would hurt human morale while providing the Empire with a useful agricultural world. Meanwhile, the colonists of New Jeju continued their daily routines. Park Hyunwoo reviewed crop reports and planned the next harvest. Lee Soo-jin calibrated irrigation systems and checked soil conditions. Kim Tae-ho ran training exercises with his small defense force, though everyone treated it more like a social club than real military preparation. The evening brought people together at Yoon Jae-won's cantina. Farmers shared stories of their day over local beer. Families enjoyed simple meals together. Children played games in the streets while parents watched from doorways. It was a scene of perfect peace and contentment. None of them knew that enemy ships were racing toward their world through the darkness of space. The Valthyran Empire was about to test human resolve for the first time. War Captain Velthak expected to find weak civilians ready to surrender at the first sign of superior force. But the galaxy held many secrets, and not everything was as it appeared. The peaceful farming colony of New Jeju had its own hidden depths. The simple farmers and their quiet governor carried secrets that would soon shock an empire that had never known defeat. Tomorrow would bring changes that none of them could imagine. The war that was coming would reveal truths about humanity that even the humans themselves had forgotten. And it would all begin with what seemed like a simple demand for surrender from an alien fleet that had chosen the wrong target. The morning alarm bells rang across New Jeju, just as the farmers were beginning their daily work. Park Hyunwoo rushed to the communication center, his coffee forgotten on the kitchen table. The duty officer, a young woman named Han Sora, looked pale as she handed him the scanner readout. "Governor, we have 50 unknown ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our system," she said, her voice tight with worry. "They're big, sir." "Much bigger than our supply ships." Park Hyunwoo studied the display with practiced eyes. The ships showed weapon signatures and military-grade shielding. This was no trading fleet or peaceful contact mission. He activated the colony-wide communication system with steady hands. "Attention all residents of New Jeju. We have visitors approaching our system. Please remain calm and continue your normal activities while we establish contact. This is likely a routine patrol or trade inquiry." His calm voice helped ease the panic that had begun to spread through the settlement. People gathered in small groups, talking quietly and watching the sky. Children stayed close to their parents. The farmers set down their tools and waited to see what would happen next. Within hours, the alien fleet had moved into orbit around New Jeju. The ships were massive and clearly built for war. Strange symbols marked their hulls, and weapon ports dotted their surfaces like hungry eyes. The colonists had never seen anything like them. War Captain Velthak opened communications from his flagship. His image appeared on screens throughout the colony, showing a tall creature with gray skin and sharp features. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Primitive humans of this world," he began, his tone dismissive and cold. "I am War Captain Velthak of the glorious Valthyran Empire. Your species has attracted our attention. We offer you the honor of joining our great civilization under imperial rule." Park Hyunwoo responded carefully, playing the role of a nervous civilian administrator. We welcome contact with your people, Captain, but we are simple farmers here. We have no authority to speak for our government." "Perhaps you should contact Earth directly." The alien captain laughed, a harsh sound that made the colonists flinch. "Earth is far away, human. You will decide for yourselves. Submit to the Empire and your lives will continue under our protection. Resist and your world will serve as an example to others who might defy us." "How long do we have to decide?" Park Hyunwoo asked, his voice shaking slightly. Behind the obvious fear, he was calculating rapidly. Every moment of delay was precious. "You have 48 of your hours," Velthak declared. "Use this time wisely. Consider the fate of species who chose poorly in the past. We will establish a blockade to ensure no one leaves while you make your decision." The transmission ended, leaving the colonists in shocked silence. Families gathered in their homes, holding each other close. Some people cried openly. Others stared at the alien ships now visible as bright dots in the daytime sky. Kim Tae-ho called an emergency meeting of the Defense Force. The 200 volunteers gathered in the community center, looking lost and frightened. Their training had been basic, their equipment was old, and they faced an enemy with overwhelming firepower. "I won't lie to you," Kim told his people. "We can't fight ships like that with what we have, but we can make plans to protect our families, help people stay calm, keep order if panic starts to spread." Dr. Choi Mi-young prepared the medical center for possible casualties. She organized supplies and trained volunteers in basic first aid. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced as she thought about what might come. Meanwhile, activity increased throughout the colony in ways the watching aliens couldn't detect. Lee Soo-jin worked frantically in the agricultural facilities, checking systems that had nothing to do with farming. Her technical expertise extended far beyond soil science and crop rotation. Yoon Jae-won closed his cantina early and gathered with other community leaders. They spoke in quiet voices about evacuation plans and emergency procedures. To any observer, they looked like frightened civilians trying to organize in a crisis. The Velthiran fleet settled into a standard blockade formation. Their sensors monitored all communication frequencies, watching for any attempt to call for help. They detected exactly what they expected: panicked messages between family members, local officials trying to maintain order, and desperate pleas for someone to contact Earth. War Captain Velthak was satisfied with human reactions. The colonists showed appropriate fear and confusion. Their defense force was laughably small and poorly equipped. Their leader seemed like a typical civilian administrator, overwhelmed by a situation beyond his experience. Just as intelligence predicted, he told his officers, "These humans are soft. They grow food and raise families, but they know nothing of war. When the deadline expires, they will surrender without firing a shot." His confidence was shared throughout the Velthiran fleet. The soldiers prepared for an easy occupation duty rather than combat. Some even joked about spending their shore leave on a pleasant agricultural world with cooperative natives. But beneath the surface of New Jeju, changes were taking place that alien sensors could not detect. Deep underground, massive systems came online for the first time in years. Power flowed through hidden networks. Sealed chambers opened to reveal equipment that had waited patiently for this moment. Park Hyun-woo met with his key staff in a bunker that officially didn't exist. The scared administrator was gone, replaced by a man whose eyes held the cold calculation of a born tactician. Around him, his people showed the same transformation. "Status report," he said simply. "All primary systems online," Lee Soo-jin reported, her technical readouts covering far more than agricultural data. "Power grid at full capacity. Network connections established. We're ready for Phase 1. Defense positions," he asked Kim Tae-ho. "All teams in place. Camouflage holding. The enemy still thinks we have 200 farmers with hunting rifles." Kim's smile was sharp and predatory. "They have no idea what's really down here." Dr. Choi Mi-young checked her own preparations. Her medical facility was ready, but not just for treating injured colonists. She had other skills that peaceful farming hadn't required for years. As the 48-hour deadline approached, the Velthirans prepared for easy victory. Their ships moved into bombardment positions. Troops readied for planetary assault. War Captain Velthak composed his victory message to Supreme Command. The colonists maintained their facades perfectly. Children stayed close to their families. Adults looked appropriately worried. The defense force kept their old equipment visible, while keeping their real capabilities hidden. Everything appeared exactly as the aliens expected. But in the deep places beneath New Jeju's peaceful surface, humanity's true nature was awakening. Systems that had slept for years hummed with deadly purpose. Weapons designed by Earth's finest military engineers prepared for their first test. The harvest was about to begin. War Captain Velthak opened the final communication to New Jeju. "Humans, your time is nearly ended. What is your decision?" Park Hyun-woo appeared on screen one last time, looking like a broken man facing the inevitable. We submit to the Empire, but please give us time to organize the transition. There are children here, families, we need to prepare them." "You have chosen wisely," the war captain said with satisfaction. "Prepare to receive our occupation forces. Resistance will be met with immediate termination." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, both sides made their final preparations. The Velthirans expected an easy landing and quick establishment of control. The humans of New Jeju prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating humanity. The 48 hours were nearly over. Soon the real New Jeju would reveal itself to an enemy that had no idea what was coming. The deadline arrived with the rising sun. War Captain Velthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching New Jeju turn slowly below. The planet looked peaceful and defenseless, exactly as he had expected. Small farming settlements dotted the continents, connected by simple roads. No sign of military installations or serious defensive positions. Begin pacification bombardment, he ordered his weapons officer. Target the main settlement first. Light bombardment only. We want to demonstrate our power, not destroy valuable infrastructure. The Valtheran ships opened fire with their lighter weapons. Bright beams of energy lanced down from orbit, aimed at empty fields near the colony's center. The idea was simple. Show overwhelming force, make the humans panic, then demand immediate surrender. The energy beams struck the planet's surface and simply disappeared. Velthak stared at his displays in confusion. The targeting systems showed direct hits, but there was no explosion, no crater, no sign of impact at all. His weapons officer checked the readings twice, then looked up with bewilderment. "Sir, our weapons are firing normally, but something is absorbing the energy," he reported. "It's like the planet has some kind of defensive screen." Before Velthak could respond, New Jeju's true nature revealed itself. The grain silos throughout the colony suddenly opened like flowers blooming in fast motion. But instead of storing wheat, they held missile launch tubes. Hundreds of sleek projectiles erupted from hidden launchers, racing toward the Valtheran fleet with impossible speed. At the same time, the agricultural equipment scattered across the farms began to unfold and transform. What had looked like simple tractors and harvesters revealed themselves as massive weapon platforms. Railgun batteries rose from beneath crop fields, their barrels swiveling to track targets in orbit. Lee Soo-jin stood at her control station, no longer pretending to be just an agricultural engineer. Her real expertise was in military technology and defensive systems. With practiced efficiency, she coordinated the planet's awakening arsenal. "First wave missiles away," she reported to Park Hyun-woo. "Railguns coming online. Energy shields at full power." Park Hyun-woo had dropped his mask of frightened civilian. The man who now commanded New Jeju's defense was clearly a veteran military officer, his orders crisp and confident. "Target priority Alpha. Take out their heavy cruisers first." The Valtheran fleet reeled under the sudden assault. Ships that had been confidently preparing for easy occupation found themselves fighting for survival. The human missiles weren't just numerous, they were incredibly advanced, weaving through defensive fire and adjusting their attack patterns in real time. War Captain Velthak watched his fleet being torn apart and couldn't understand what was happening. Intelligence had said this was a farming colony with minimal defenses. Instead, his ships faced firepower that rivaled a major military installation. "All ships return fire," he commanded. "Destroy those weapon positions." The Valtheran fleet unleashed its full bombardment, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. But the energy beams and missile strikes simply vanished against New Jeju's shields. The defensive screen held firm, powered by fusion reactors that had been disguised as simple geothermal plants. Kim Taeho emerged from underground bunkers with his colonial defense force. But these weren't weekend warrior farmers anymore. 200 of the most elite soldiers in human space moved with deadly precision. Their real equipment finally revealed. Advanced armor, energy weapons, and tactical gear that made them nearly invincible. The Valtherans had managed to launch several dropships before the orbital battle began. Now those alien troops landed on what they expected to be a helpless farming world. Instead, they found themselves facing opponents who moved like ghosts and fought like devils. Yoon Jae-won, the friendly cantina owner, led one of the defensive squads. His civilian disguise fell away to reveal a decorated combat veteran with skills that had been honed in a dozen previous wars. The aliens who landed near his position didn't live long enough to understand their mistake. Dr. Choi Mi-young had her own role in the defense. Her medical training was real, but she had other skills as well. When Valtheran troops tried to secure the medical facility, they found a doctor who could heal or kill with equal expertise. The ground battle was even more one-sided than the space combat. Every single colonist on New Jeju was revealed to be military personnel. The children and families the aliens had seen were all carefully constructed illusions. The real population of New Jeju was 50,000 elite soldiers posing as peaceful farmers. Lee Soo-jin, triggered her most devastating surprise. The terraforming charges she had placed throughout the colony's farmland detonated in sequence, reshaping the battlefield in seconds. Hills became valleys, valleys became mountains, and alien troops found themselves trapped in kill zones that had been planned years in advance. In orbit, the Valthiran fleet continued to die. The railguns hidden beneath New Jeju's farms fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, punching through ship armor like paper. Advanced missiles swarmed around defensive screens to strike critical systems. Within the first hour, 30 ships had been destroyed or disabled. War Captain Velthak tried desperately to withdraw his remaining forces, but escape routes were already blocked. Cloaked human destroyers emerged from the asteroid belt where they had been waiting. The trap had been perfectly set and expertly executed. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence officer. Our scouts reported a peaceful agricultural colony. Sir, our information was accurate, the officer replied weakly. This place was exactly what it appeared to be, but somehow they've hidden a major military installation beneath the farming operations. The truth was more elegant than the Velthirans could imagine. New Jeju wasn't a colony disguised as a military base. It was a military base perfectly disguised as a colony. Every aspect of the farming operation was real and functional, but it served as camouflage for one of humanity's most sophisticated defensive installations. Park Hyun-woo coordinated the battle from his command center, which had been hidden beneath what appeared to be the colony's administrative building. His staff moved with military precision, each person a specialist in their field of warfare. The frightened civilian administrator had never existed at all. Status report, he requested as the battle entered its second hour. Orbital defense complete, Lee Soo-jin reported. Enemy fleet reduced to 12 ships, all attempting to withdraw. Ground operations 90% successful. Remaining alien troops isolated and surrounded. Casualties on our side? 3 wounded, none killed. Dr. Choi is handling the injured. Park Hyun-woo nodded with satisfaction. The plan had worked perfectly. Years of preparation and careful deception had created a trap that no enemy could escape. The Valthiran Empire had sent a fleet to conquer farmers, and instead found themselves fighting ghosts. The space battle ended with the destruction of the Valthiran flagship. War Captain Velthak died still trying to understand how his intelligence could have been so wrong. Only one alien ship escaped the slaughter, a damaged scout vessel that limped toward hyperspace carrying news of the disaster. On the ground, the last pockets of enemy resistance were being eliminated. Kim Tae-ho's soldiers moved through the transformed landscape, hunting down alien survivors with methodical efficiency. The Valthiran troops had been trained for conquest, not survival against an enemy that knew every meter of the terrain. As the sun set on New Jeju, the harvest was complete. 50 Valthiran warships had been reduced to wreckage. Thousands of alien troops had been killed or captured. The farming colony had revealed its true nature and demonstrated humanity's hidden strength. But Park Hyun-woo knew this was only the beginning. The escaped scout ship would carry word back to the Valthiran Empire. Supreme Admiral Kethmore would learn of this defeat and respond with overwhelming force. The real test was yet to come. For now, though, the colonists celebrated their victory. The wheat fields would need replanting after the battle, but that was a small price to pay. They had sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not as helpless as it appeared. The question was whether anyone would understand the lesson before it was too late. Supreme Admiral Kethmore received the report in his war room aboard the massive Imperial dreadnought, Eternal Dominion. The surviving scout ship's commander, Sub-Captain Hector, trembled as he delivered news that should have been impossible. 50 ships destroyed. Admiral, Hector reported, his voice barely steady. The entire scouting fleet eliminated by what our intelligence said was a simple farming colony. War Captain Velthak died with his ship. The war room fell silent. Kethmore had commanded Imperial fleets for 3 decades, conquering system after system. Never had he lost an entire fleet to any enemy, let alone a group of primitive farmers. His officers stared at the tactical display showing the new Jeju system, trying to understand what had happened. Describe their weapons, Kethmore demanded, his voice cold with controlled rage. Advanced missiles that moved like living things. Energy weapons that cut through our armor like it was paper. Defensive shields that absorbed our heaviest bombardments without failing. Hector's hands shook as he continued. And the ground troops, Admiral. They weren't farmers at all. Every single one was a trained warrior. The admiral studied the fragmentary sensor data recovered from the destroyed fleet. The readings showed technology that matched or exceeded Imperial standards. This wasn't possible according to everything they knew about human capabilities. How many actual military personnel? He asked. All of them, sir. 50,000 soldiers disguised as civilians and farmers. The entire colony was a trap waiting to be sprung. Kethmore's fury grew cold and calculating. One defeat could be explained as poor intelligence or bad luck. But this level of deception suggested something far more dangerous. If humans could hide 50,000 elite troops as farmers, what else were they hiding? Summon the War Council, he ordered. The humans have shown their true nature. Now they will face the Empire's full response. Within hours, the Imperial command structure moved into action. The defeat at New Jeju couldn't be allowed to stand. Other species were watching, and any sign of Imperial weakness would encourage rebellion throughout the Empire. Admiral Kethmore assembled the 5th Battle Fleet, 500 warships, and 100,000 troops. It was enough firepower to sterilize an entire star system if necessary. The humans would pay for their deception with their lives, and their destroyed world would serve as a warning to the galaxy. On New Jeju, the colonists prepared for the storm they knew was coming. Park Hyun-woo stood in his command center, reviewing casualty reports from the first battle. 3 wounded soldiers was an remarkably light cost for such a complete victory, but he knew the real test was yet to begin. Admiral Song's fleet is en route, Lee Soo-jin reported from her engineering station. 20 ships ETA 4 days. They're bringing reinforcements and resupply. Park Hyun-woo nodded, though 20 ships seemed pitifully small compared to what the Empire would send in response. Admiral Song Ki-tae commanded one of humanity's patrol fleets, designed more for exploration than major combat operations. Kim Tae-ho entered the command center with an update on the captured Valtheran soldiers. 53 prisoners, all wounded but stable. Dr. Choi is treating them in the secure medical facility. Some are talking. What are they saying? They're confused and terrified. They truly believed this was a simple farming colony. Their intelligence was accurate as far as it went. We really do grow crops and raise livestock. They just didn't know what else we do here. The success of the deception was both their greatest strength and biggest weakness. New Jeju really was a functioning agricultural colony. The wheat fields, the livestock, the civilian infrastructure, all of it was genuine. But it also served as perfect camouflage for a military installation that had taken decades to build. Dr. Choi Mi-young finished treating the last of the wounded defenders and joined the command staff briefing. Her dual role as doctor and soldier was typical of everyone on New Jeju. They all had civilian jobs that were both real and fake at the same time. The wounded Valtherans are recovering well, she reported. I've been questioning them about their fleet's capabilities. They're trained soldiers, but they've never faced opponents like us before. Yoon Jae-won arrived with intelligence gathered from his own sources. His cantina had been destroyed during the battle, but the friendly barkeeper had other skills that served the colony's defense. Like everyone else on New Jeju, he was much more than he appeared. Long-range sensors are picking up hyperspace distortions in the outer system, he announced. Something big is coming. Multiple large signatures probably within 2 days. Park Hyun-woo studied the tactical projections with growing concern. The Empire's response would be overwhelming by any normal standard. 500 ships would be enough to crack a planet's crust if they couldn't be stopped in space. Status of our orbital defenses? He asked Lee Soo-jin. All systems operational and fully charged. But Admiral, we expended 60% of our missiles in the first battle. Against 500 ships, we'll run out of ammunition before we run out of targets. The mathematics were harsh but clear. New Jeju's defensive systems had been designed to handle raiding fleets and scouting forces, not a full Imperial battle fleet. They had prepared for the wrong kind of fight, but preparation had other dimensions beyond pure firepower. Messages flowed through hidden communication networks, reaching destinations throughout human space. The attack on New Jeju was triggering protocols that had been planned for years but never used. Admiral Song Ki-tae's fleet dropped out of hyperspace right on schedule. 20 human ships that looked tiny compared to what was coming behind them. But Song was a careful commander who understood the bigger picture better than most. He established contact with New Jeju immediately. Governor Park, good to see you're still alive down there. That was impressive work against the scouting fleet. Thank you, Admiral. But we're about to face something much worse. Imperial intelligence suggests 500 ships minimum, possibly more. I know. That's why I brought friends. Song transmitted new tactical data that made Park Hyun-woo smile for the first time in days. The 20 ships were just the visible force. Hidden throughout the system were cloaked vessels, automated weapon platforms, and other surprises that would multiply their effective strength significantly. The evacuation ships are ready to begin civilian withdrawal, Song continued, maintaining the fiction that New Jeju still held actual civilians who needed protection. But the evacuation ships weren't removing people from New Jeju. They were bringing more soldiers and equipment to the planet. Every transport that appeared to carry fleeing families actually delivered additional special forces teams and advanced military hardware. Lee Soo-jin coordinated the false evacuation while preparing the planet's enhanced defenses. To any observer, it would look like New Jeju was being abandoned by terrified colonists. In reality, the human presence was being strengthened and reinforced. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet continued its approach. Supreme Admiral Kethmore reviewed his battle plans from the bridge of his flagship. This time there would be no surprises. His overwhelming force would crush any resistance and make an example of human defiance. "Admiral, we're detecting evacuation ships leaving the planet," his intelligence officer reported. "Multiple civilian transports heading for the outer system." "Let them go," Kethmore decided. "Fleeing civilians will spread word of what happens to those who resist the Empire. Their fear will serve our purposes." The evacuation continued for 2 days while the Imperial fleet approached. To the watching aliens, it appeared that New Jeju was being abandoned by its people. The defenders were giving up without a fight, just as civilized beings should when faced with overwhelming force. Dr. Choi Mi-young supervised the loading of her medical evacuees onto the transports. Each injured colonist was actually a healthy soldier in disguise, and each medical supply shipment contained military equipment instead of bandages and medicine. As the Imperial fleet drew closer, New Jeju appeared to be transforming from a defended colony into an abandoned world. Only a skeleton crew remained to operate basic facilities, or so the aliens believed. In reality, the human force had doubled in size and capability. The real evacuation was happening among the Valthiran prisoners. Dr. Choi quietly arranged for the most seriously wounded aliens to be shipped to safety before the battle began. It was a gesture of mercy that would later puzzle Imperial historians trying to understand human nature. Supreme Admiral Kethmore prepared for what he expected to be a brief, decisive engagement. His massive fleet would overwhelm the remaining defenders and establish Imperial dominance over this region of space. The destruction of New Jeju would demonstrate that defying the Empire brought only death. But humanity had shown only the first layer of its hidden strength. What the aliens had faced before was nothing compared to what was waiting for them. The harvest was about to begin again, and this time the crop would be measured in Imperial ships. The Imperial Armada dropped out of hyperspace like a dark storm cloud. 500 Valthiran warships filled the space around New Jeju, their hulls gleaming with weapon ports and battle scars from countless conquests. Supreme Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, satisfied by the display of overwhelming force. "Begin orbital bombardment," he commanded. "I want that planet's surface melted to glass. Every structure destroyed, every hiding place eliminated." The Imperial fleet unleashed hell itself upon New Jeju. Energy beams powerful enough to boil oceans lanced downward. Missile swarms that could level continents streaked toward the planet's surface. Plasma cannons that had cracked moons fired at maximum power. The bombardment was designed to destroy all life on the planet within minutes. No defensive system could withstand such incredible firepower. The Admiral watched with grim satisfaction as his weapons lit up the night side of New Jeju with artificial suns. Then the impossible happened. Every beam, every missile, every plasma bolt simply vanished against New Jeju's defensive screens. "Status report," Kethmore demanded, staring at sensor readings that made no sense. "Admiral, our weapons are having no effect," his tactical officer reported with disbelief. "The planet's shields are absorbing everything we throw at them. Power output suggests they're using some kind of zero-point energy source." Zero-point energy was theoretical even to the advanced Valthiran Empire. The idea that primitive humans could harness such power was beyond comprehension. Yet the evidence was undeniable. New Jeju remained completely undamaged despite bombardment that should have sterilized its surface, Admiral. Song Kitae watched the Imperial fleet from his command ship hidden in the asteroid belt. His 20 visible vessels looked pathetically small compared to the enemy armada, but appearances could be deceiving. The real strength of his force lay in what the aliens couldn't see. All stealth units begin Phase 1, he ordered calmly. Throughout the system, cloaked human vessels moved into attack positions, advanced destroyer-class ships equipped with experimental technology that made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Each one carried firepower that far exceeded its size. On New Jeju's surface, Park Hyun-woo coordinated the defense from his expanded command center. The false evacuation had actually brought him 10,000 additional elite troops and enough equipment to outfit a small army. His force was now ready for anything the Empire could throw at them. Orbital shields holding at 98% capacity, Lee Soo-jin reported from her engineering station. 0-point generators operating within normal parameters. We can maintain this level of protection indefinitely. The shields weren't just defensive, they were also hiding New Jeju's true nature from Imperial sensors. Below the energy barrier, massive weapon systems were powering up for the first time in decades, railguns that dwarfed anything the first battle had revealed. Missile launchers capable of saturating space with smart projectiles. Energy weapons that could punch through the heaviest armor. Supreme Admiral Kethmore grew frustrated as his bombardment continued to have no effect. Hours passed with no sign that the planet's defenses were weakening. His fleet was expending massive amounts of ammunition and energy for zero results. Deploy ground forces, he finally ordered. If we cannot break their shields from orbit, we will take the planet by direct assault. The Imperial fleet launched every transport and landing craft it carried. 100,000 Valthyran troops descended toward New Jeju's surface in the largest planetary assault in their history. Kethmore was determined to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers if advanced technology wouldn't work. The alien troops passed through New Jeju's shields without resistance. The defensive barrier was designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not physical objects moving at relatively low speeds. Landing craft touched down across every continent, disgorging soldiers equipped for total warfare. What they found waiting for them redefined their understanding of combat. Kim Tae-ho had used the preparation time well. His expanded force of 10,000 soldiers had transformed New Jeju into the ultimate defensive position. Every hill had been fortified, every valley turned into a kill zone. The planet's surface looked like peaceful farmland, but beneath the illusion lay the most sophisticated military installation humanity had ever built. The first wave of Imperial troops landed near what appeared to be abandoned farming villages. They advanced cautiously, expecting to find empty buildings and frightened civilians. Instead, they walked into perfectly planned ambushes that had been designed by military engineers with decades of experience. Yoon Jae-won led one of the defensive teams that emerged from hidden bunkers to engage the landing forces. His expertise went far beyond serving drinks and managing a cantina. Every member of his unit was a specialist in close-quarters combat, with skills honed through years of training. The Imperial soldiers were competent warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. But they had never faced opponents like the defenders of New Jeju. Every human on the planet was military personnel trained from childhood for exactly this kind of warfare. They moved through the landscape like ghosts, striking without warning and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Dr. Choi Mi-young established field hospitals in secure locations, but her role extended far beyond medical care. Her knowledge of Valthyran physiology, gained from treating prisoners after the first battle, made her teams extraordinarily effective at neutralizing alien soldiers without necessarily killing them. The ground battle quickly turned into a nightmare for the Imperial forces. Advanced human technology allowed the defenders to see in complete darkness, move silently through any terrain, and coordinate attacks with inhuman precision. Every engagement resulted in heavy alien casualties and minimal human losses. Lee Soo-jin triggered her most devastating surprise. The terraforming charges she had placed throughout the planet's surface during the false evacuation detonated in carefully timed sequences. Mountains rose where there had been plains. Rivers changed course to flood enemy positions. The entire landscape of New Jeju shifted and flowed according to human tactical needs. In space, Admiral Song's hidden fleet struck without warning. The cloaked destroyers had moved into perfect position, while the Imperial fleet focused on their failed bombardment. Advanced torpedoes launched from stealth positions, each one targeted at critical enemy systems. The Imperial ships found themselves under attack by enemies they couldn't see. Human vessels equipped with experimental technology danced through their formations, striking and vanishing before defensive fire could lock onto them. The alien fleet's numerical advantage meant nothing when they couldn't target their opponents. "Where are they?" Kethmore demanded as another of his cruisers exploded from an unseen torpedo strike. "How can they hide entire fleets from our sensors?" His science officer worked frantically at his station, trying to understand technology that seemed impossible. "Admiral, they're using some kind of adaptive camouflage system. Our sensors detect them for moments, then they vanish again. It's like they're shifting in and out of normal space." The space battle became a masterclass in advanced tactics. Human ships with superior technology and training systematically dismantled an enemy fleet 10 times their size. Each attack was perfectly coordinated, each withdrawal flawlessly executed. The Imperial advantage in numbers became meaningless against opponents who could not be effectively engaged. On the planet's surface, the ground war continued to go badly for the Imperial forces. Park Hyun-woo's defenders used every advantage their preparation had provided. Hidden weapon caches supplied ammunition for extended combat. Underground tunnels allowed rapid movement between positions. Advanced communications kept every unit coordinated with perfect precision. The Valtheran troops had trained for conventional planetary assault against static defenses. Instead, they faced an enemy that treated the entire planet as a single, massive weapon. Every rock could hide a sniper. Every hill might conceal artillery. Every peaceful valley could become a killing field at a moment's notice. After 6 hours of continuous combat, Supreme Admiral Kethmore finally understood the scope of his mistake. This wasn't a farming colony with hidden defenses. This was a military installation so sophisticated that it could masquerade as a civilian settlement while maintaining full agricultural production. The deception was perfect because it wasn't really deception at all. His ground forces were being systematically destroyed by defenders who knew every meter of terrain. His fleet was being picked apart by enemies who could strike from invisibility. The bombardment had accomplished nothing except wasting ammunition against shields powered by technology the Empire didn't possess. "Admiral, we're receiving a communication from the human forces," his communications officer reported. Park Hyun-woo's image appeared on the main screen of the Imperial flagship. The man who had pretended to be a frightened colonial administrator now spoke with the authority of a veteran military commander. "Supreme Admiral Kethmore," he said calmly, "I am offering you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and leave this system. Your soldiers on the ground will be allowed to return to their ships unharmed if you agree to immediate departure." The Admiral stared at the human with a mixture of rage and disbelief.